into our Constitution. Of course, we don't even have a Constitution anymore. I don't know if you watched last summer, but the Supreme Court has overturned many of its own rulings. In fact, you don't even have the right to privacy anymore, basically. Cops don't need warrants anymore to search you, your house, your ass. They can pretty much do whatever they want now. It's basically between you and the cops. They can coerce you into confessing things that you might not have even done. They'll have you downtown beating the hell out of you and make you say that you did something. Well, that used to be illegal and you could fight it in court. Well, now it's legal. Coerced confessions are legal. Now, if that doesn't scare you, I mean, does that remind you of the Gestapo or the SS or the KGB? I mean, this is what it's getting to be around here. A complete fascist society where the law and even the money is just completely in control, and we're a bunch of sheep wandering around just trying to make ends meet, unless we are so fortunate to be part of the big money already, where our daddies could send us to expensive schools. Then everything is okay, everything is fine. But if you're a middle class, well, I don't even think there is a middle class anymore. You're either rich or you're poor, you're biting the dust. But anyways, just watch out for the Supreme Court. That shit's coming up. But anyways, that's it. This is Big Brother Watch. You're listening to Frank Zappa. This is Methods of Madness. And a little more Zappa.
The skies on flight 1203. In an hour or two, I would whisper I do to my beautiful ebony eyes. The plane was way overdue, so I went inside to the airline's desk. And I said, "Sir, I wonder why 1203 is so late." He said, "Oh, they probably took off late. Or they may have run into some turbulent weather and had to alter their course." I went back outside and I looked
Pump up your drug supply. So many people have hooked themselves on heroin and amphetamine since we took over. Just like Vietnam, we had everybody so busy with LSD they never got too strong. Kept the horse functioning just fine. It's easy. We got our college kids so interested in beer, they don't even care if we start manufacturing germ bombs again. A nuclear stockpile in their backyard, they wouldn't even know what it looked like. So how about it? I mean, look, war is money. The arms manufacturers tell me once we get our bomb factories up to full production, the whole economy is going to collapse. The Soviets are in the same boat. We all agree that China's come to the big one. So what do you say? That's excellent. We knew you'd agree. The companies will be very pleased.
And you know they will. I hope some of you can kind of see through all that. And it's true. It's all true, believe me. Anyways, here is Lords of the New Church.
Well, I've spared your ears somewhat, but not really. I don't know. Will somebody call in and tell me if they want to talk about Big Brother and the FBI and the CIA and the KGB? No. Anyways, there isn't really a whole lot to talk about this week, but I was thinking about mentioning some of the things and some of the ways that we've just recently lost our rights. I think a lot of people really aren't aware of that. Right now, we're living about one step away from martial law, and they just don't see it yet, but you'll see it soon enough.
Whoa. Alright, just got a whole bunch of requests, unfortunately. It's time for politics. Okay, it's 1992. A a long ways away from 1984, but if you look at it another way, it's getting closer to 1984 every day. If you remember the old Orson Welles nightmare future prediction, well, I think right here, from just the little garbage that I kind of rummaged through, you know, like the San Jose Mercury News and Chronicle and all those conservative, well, for the most part, newspapers, as they dish out the propaganda and the brainwashing to make you one of those patriotic rednecks. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, there's so many stories I've kind of covered throughout the whole year, there's no way I could go over them all. But I am going to dig a few of those up and bore you to tears for a few minutes. So, as we all know, Kuwait is just a memory. Thomas is in, Gates is in, Poindexter is off, Duke's out, but he's still running, and now Pat Buchanan is running and fundamentally conservative, and Frank Zappa is doing a feasibility study.
If I was president, then I could do a fine job. Because first of all, I don't owe anything to anybody. And I don't believe in the platform of any of the parties. So I would start from scratch and make it up as I went along. And there's no way that anybody in any public office is going to get 100% of the public liking his or her policies. And so you just take that as a given, and you can do things.
And the Supreme Court is leaning towards rewriting the whole Constitution, taking away our rights of privacy and freedom of information. Which brings me to the censorship issue. There seems to be more and more censorship going on all the time. And thank God we still have stations like KSCU down here who can voice their opinions a little more freely than others. Of course, you can take this as fiction or nonfiction, however you want to take it. These are my simple, casual, demented observations of what I think is going on. Okay, any quotes I have, I will quote where it came from, but most of it is just me getting back at, at them bombarding me with the 70 channels of bullshit every day on the TV and radio. All you hear is the same garbage. Alright, censorship is alive and well. Just look at all the journalists who actually got together and complained about the restrictions in covering the Iraqi war. There have been numerous conflicting reports and many were needlessly kept in the dark. In fact, well, since it's going to take a long time, how about we just put a little Bill Nelson in the background, okay? Let's see if you can hear this over my voice. It's possible. Yes, that's right, censorship. All during the war, these reporters were held in little camps, and they weren't allowed to actually see what was really going on, and then they wouldn't actually get the stories until much later. In fact, they would not get the story until there was a full military investigation, and then they would give them the story that they wanted the public to hear. Well, all this did was produce like a polished image of the war. And, I mean, there was like no blood for us and supposedly limited civilian casualties for them. Well, I don't think that's the way it really was. In fact, there have been articles referring to the Turkey Shoot, which is where there was a whole convoy of retreating Iraqis who just got bombed to hell. And then there was troops who were buried alive. As they were trying to run away, we came in there with tanks, and we had these big pits that we'd already dug out for them, and we just bulldozed them in. And as they were trying to climb out, we just kept shooting them and bulldozing them back in. And the war was over already. That's the thing you have to understand. They were on their way out of there, and we went in there like Nazis, like barbarians. That's pretty vicious stuff. And if they had done that to us, you know, it would have been a whole different story. But nobody really seems to care about that. But
throughout the night, the Americans pursued the Republican Guard. By daybreak, they'd smashed an entire division, leaving over 100 tanks and armored vehicles smoking on the battlefield. The remaining Republican Guard divisions made a desperate retreat, and the Americans continued to hunt them down. It looked like the Americans now had the Republican Guard at their mercy. But something had happened inside Kuwait that would help save them from destruction. Iraqi troops had been fleeing from Kuwait City in any vehicle they could get their hands on. American commanders were determined to stop them. It led to one of the most controversial episodes of the war. Using laser-guided bombs, pilots attacked Iraqi vehicles along a stretch of this road leading north from Kuwait City. This created a roadblock, and behind it, hundreds of vehicles became trapped in a giant traffic jam. This made them totally vulnerable to the American aircraft overhead. Some of them were so desperate to escape that they drove off across the desert. Every available American aircraft was ordered into the attack, with devastating results. For mile after mile, charred vehicles and human corpses littered the desert and choked the two main roads going towards Iraq. An estimated 2,000 vehicles were destroyed. Only very few of them were tanks or armored personnel carriers. Most were civilian vehicles stolen by the Iraqi army as they fled Kuwait City. Nobody knows how many hundreds or thousands of Iraqis died in the attacks. The American leadership realized that pictures like these would soon be on television around the world, and they feared it would look like a massacre. This would become a key factor in deciding when to end the war. "36 hours later, coalition troops led by units from Kuwait's own army arrived in Kuwait City. And the first to go in would be the US Marines.
This is it. Have fun.
Got an American flag in this pack right here we're gonna raise in Kuwait.
The Marines had to bulldoze gaps in huge banks of sand like this one so the tanks and artillery could advance.
Going onward about this, censoring the war and stuff, there were, some pretty gruesome things going on, and we didn't see any of the blood at all. In fact, that was censored, going all back to the censorship thing here. And to tell you the truth, there was a picture that actually got through that I saw that was the most stomach-turning thing. It was a man trying to get out of his truck, and all his flesh and everything was melted onto his bones, and he was like halfway out of the truck, and he was there with just bones and melted skin. And I could see why the government wouldn't want to put that in everyone's face, because then they'd stand up and say, hey, forget this madness, But no, we want to protect all innocent eyes of such atrocities. But yet the way I see it, we are just like a mercenary service to our main cooperating oil suppliers. But we broke the Geneva Convention by burying and burning those who were retreating. That's pretty heavy stuff. That's just basic tipping on the iceberg of censorship there. And the government and the military are definitely taking over on that one. And in fact, everywhere you turn around, look in the art world, there's the National Endowment for the Arts. There was that whole Mapplethorpe thing and BS because of all those fundamentalists who are so powerful. A lot of lobbying going on in Washington. And then there was a thing about labeling of rock and roll. And Frank Zappa actually went down and protested the labeling of lyrics as an infringement on one of our freedoms, which is going back to the Supreme Court, which has taken away all of our rights, basically. And in fact...
next witness will be Mr. Frank Zappa. Mr. Zappa, thank you very much for being with us. Please proceed.
Okay, my name is Frank Zappa. This is my attorney, Larry Stein, from Los Angeles. Can you hear me?
If you could speak very directly and clearly into the microphone, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, my name is Frank Zappa. This is my attorney, Larry Stein. The statement that I prepared that I sent you 100 copies of is 5 pages long, so I have shortened it down, and I'm going to read a condensed version of it. Certain things have happened. I've been listening to the event in the other room, and I've heard some conflicting reports as to whether or not people in this committee want legislation. I understand that Mr. Hollings does from his comments. Is that correct?
I think you better concentrate on your testimony rather than asking questions of the committee.
The reason I need to ask it because I have to change something in my testimony if there is not a clear-cut version of whether or not legislation is what is being discussed here.
So, do the best you can, because I don't think anybody here can characterize Senator Hollings' position.
Okay. Well, I'll carry on with the issue then. First thing
I might help out, Jim, out just a little bit if I might, but I can't be big.
Yes.
This is one senator that might be interested in legislation and or regulation to some extent, recognizing the problems with free right of expression and my previously expressed views that I don't believe I should be telling other people what they have to listen to. Mm-hmm. But I really believe that the suggestions made by the original panel was some kind of an arrangement for voluntarily policing this in the music industry is the correct way to go. Mm-hmm. So if it'll help you out in your testimony, I might join Senator Hollings in, or others in some kind of legislation and or regulation unless the free enterprise system, both the producers and you as the performers, see fit to clean up your act.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's hardly voluntary. First thing I would like to do, because I know there is some foreign press involved here, and they might not understand what the issue is about. One of the things the issue is about is the First Amendment to the Constitution, and it's short, and I'd like to read it so they will understand. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's for reference. These are my personal observations and opinions. I speak on behalf of no group or professional organization. The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcemental problems inherent in the proposal's design. It is my understanding that, in law, First Amendment issues are decided with a preference for the least restrictive alternative. In this context, the PMRC demands are the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation.
It's getting close to being almost like a fascist martial law. But now the cops, they don't need warrants anymore. These are some of the many Supreme Court rulings that have gone on this summer. In fact, they don't even have to read you your rights anymore. They can use coerced confessions against you in court, which used to be completely illegal. And police can search your car, your trunk, your house. They can search your ass and hold you for 48 hours for no damn reason at all. And what else? Oh, and the whole abortion thing here. Now, government-sponsored family planning are not allowed to discuss abortion with pregnant women, which kind of brings me back to the story I did about phony abortion clinics. These fundamentalists actually set up little clinics, and when the woman got there, they would, like, torture her and tell her she was going to burn in hell if she had an abortion. Some of them were actually physically restrained by these kooks, thinking that they're gonna impose their religion on everybody. And you know, it's a tragic issue, no doubt, but the fact is we don't need the government telling us that we can't have an abortion. I think that's pretty ridiculous. And anyways, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, Pat Buchanan, all these guys, Jesse Helms, they're working so hard to put their religious ideas into our government. And our government, unfortunately, is completely corrupt. Probably you remember the whole BCCI scandal. That was a real big mess. In fact, I've got a few clippings in here, just weird little things like CIA says it kept tabs on BCCI by using it. And I don't know if you remember that too well, but the CIA was actually using BCCI, the black network, to do their dirty work for them. And it's pretty funny. And here's another one, another day from the Mercury. And it goes, this is just the headline. It says CIA told agencies about BCCI, blah, blah, blah. Sub one is the CIA document appears to reinforce allegations that the Department of Justice and other U.S. agencies ignored early evidence of widespread corruption. Now, this is pretty wild stuff here. We've got Gates, who's already been caught lying, and then we've had all these guys for the Iran-Contra thing get off the hook, and they're all still lying through their teeth, and Bush and Reagan still are denying they had any knowledge of the whole thing, but they're all a bunch of crooks and they're all a bunch of liars. And it's amazing how many people can see through this stuff. But for at least 3 years, there was obvious evidence about the BCCI trip, but they just kept on doing it. And I don't know why they finally decided to blow the whistle. I think possibly they just got beat at their own game of corruption. And so that I don't know, or they're going to have to make somebody take the fall, but it's still going on. And the CIA probably is still going to be using their little black network, although it might not be going through that bank anymore. The gears are still in motion, as we should say. And then what else? Oh, the whole Noriega thing, going in with the CIA and the Iran-Contra and the arms and drugs and smuggling, and you know what? That trial has just been put off. In fact, the judge for Noriega's trial has barred evidence on George Bush, but yet he's going to allow it on Castro of Cuba. I think that says something right there. There's obviously some kind of cover-up. If he's not going to let him have evidence, he's legally entitled to. In fact, there's another one here. Noriega complains of denied documents, insisting that they couldn't defend their client without using classified federal documents. Well, that's all been censored out. The poor guy, he's a puppet. He's another fall guy who's going to take the fall for all the illegal activities that our stupid government has been doing. Because as you know, Congress said no money to the Contras, but we did it anyways with all our little cronies out there. Anyways, this is almost over here. Just remember, when you're reading this stuff, it's a lot of it's whitewash and a lot of it is to steer you in another direction. But to me, it's really scary. In fact, it seems like you can't even walk down the street, or especially like downtown at night when we were having all those helicopters with searchlights for no reason. It was pretty wild stuff. But we're living in a really tense time anyways. The whole world is going nuts. But now the cops have the power to do anything they want to you, and the government is looking for more and more ways to screw you out of all your hard-earned dollars. And it's pretty nasty stuff there. And it's all there. All you got to do is just keep reading the papers every day. You'll see it slowly but surely. Everything that you hear is trying to force an opinion on you. And luckily, being in California, we're a little bit liberal-minded, and we can try and decipher through all the BS. But I have friends who live in Europe, and I call them and ask them, well, what was the story you got on such and such? And every time I get something different. It's amazing how the whole country can be kept in the dark about so many really crucial issues. In fact, here's a piece I wrote a little while ago. called Fascism in America. Are we becoming fascist? According to the late Mae Brussel, we are. Mae was a conspiracy investigator on the radio for nearly 25 years. The Kennedy assassinations inspired her to look into subversive political activities, and she mounted an impressive network of information gatherers to try and piece together who is really running the world. Having listened to her many times, I've found that she was quite interested in the Nazi smuggling out of Germany after World War II. It was in the U.S. government interest to obtain scientific and medical knowledge from the Germans after World War II. She claims that we actually traded their freedom through the Vatican Church and other religious outlets for their findings. Among the most famous of the Nazis to escape was Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death. As you know, he did lots of sick medical experiments on people. Anyway, so we wanted to get those little lab results, you know, and who knows what's going on in the labs today. I mean, the whole thing in the 60s with the CIA trying to find the ultimate truth drug, or putting drugs on the street, which they still are, cocaine. That's central. That's, never mind. I better watch what I'm saying here. But this is a joke. Cocaine Importing Agency. That's what CIA stands for there. And, anyways, it's getting kind of crazy. The FBI wants to have the golden key to all the telephone lines. They want to be able to monitor anybody at any time. But the government actually already is doing a lot of monitoring over the telephones. And, but there's people that are going to fight them on that one. What else? Well, I think that's about it. I have a couple of other things I'll probably slip in later on. But here's a couple of funny things for you. Here's a radioactive frog and a goat that escaped and have lab workers hopping. That's another thing. The nuclear energy thing is all part of this big business corporate let's keep burning oil thought. But I mean, if you look around places like Savannah River and 3 Mile Island and Hanford, Washington and Chernobyl, it's just a matter of time before we all start getting leukemia if they don't put a lid on this stuff. And that's where all the oil buddies come in, because they're suppressing alternative energy because there's no money in it for them. And here's one more funny one. There was an AIDS group who put a giant condom on the roof of Jesse Helms' house. A 15-foot fake condom remained inflated on the roof of Senator Jesse Helms' suburban Washington home for at least 15 minutes before police ordered it to be taken down. I thought that was a pretty good one. And then there was a group of lesbians who went up to the Statue of Liberty and put a gag over her face to protest the gag ruling on the abortion thing. And then there was Clarence Thomas, our underqualified conservative who supposedly wasn't filling the quota of being a black person, whatever. But it seemed pretty obvious. But it also seemed rather ironic, seeing how that Bush just vetoed the Civil Rights Bill. And he's also rewriting all the classifications of what is a wetland. So he's taken away all our wetlands, and he's also taken away all our forests, and he was resisting on preserving Antarctica. He's about the worst president we've ever had for the environment and for education. If you look during the Reagan and Bush dynasty, you'll see things have only gotten worse. And they can sit there and still blame whoever they want to blame. But the fact is, they're a bunch of greedy, money-grabbing scumbags, and we need to vote them out of there. And this has been Big Brother Watch and the Methods of Madness. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of Stranglers.
We're not here to destroy. We are here to employ.
Okay, that was some pretty rowdy stuff there, and I have to agree with everything that guy is saying there. I think it's totally true. You can even ask Oliver North. He'll even admit it. Even though he lied during the Iran-Contra hearings, now he's got a book out and he's telling all. And not only did he know, and Bush know, and Reagan knew, they all bloody well knew. And the funny thing is it took so long for us to go in there, invade Panama, and stretch out this trial all like forever and ever so everybody would forget about it. But as you may have heard the other day, Noriega is busted, you know. But the fact is, Noriega was just another puppet for our little drug machine in order that we could sell the coke and deliver the weapons to the Contras. And as we all know, that was just another one of those typical little commie Cold War scare tactics, which they no longer can use anymore. But believe me, they'll find another reason for another war, just for the same reason that they gave Iraq their weapons, and then they let Saddam continue on. And Gaddafi, well, he's unreliable, basically. He never shows up to our little wars here. But as far as politics are concerned, I possibly will spare you, but I do have a few more things right now that I'm kind of brainstorming about this whole that coke thing. I've heard so many stories where they were actually using military jets to smuggle the drugs into America. And as far as that big drug war is concerned, it is a facade, and it is just disinformation, and it's to distract you and steer you away from the truth. And there are a lot of people who are saying that Iran-Contra scam with the coke for arms and all that shit is true. And if that doesn't scare you, if the Republicans don't scare you, they are so gung-ho about preventing communism or whatever, I don't know what does. But one thing I have to say is make sure you go out and vote this election. I have a request here on the Methods of Madness for ministry. Ministry there. Land of rape and honey. And I had a request for some, well, all kinds of stuff actually, but unfortunately I don't have it all, so if you don't hear it, don't get upset. And Requel was one of the ones I didn't have. And I'm going to get into some more crazy stuff here in just a minute. But first I'm going to quick play this little announcement. I gave the list and I told my doctor how long I told him that you have to. So I get to them, and along the way, I told my boss that there's a chance that I might not ever come back, but I plan to come back and clean this down again. So I get this letter from down after they go like 5 minutes. Not even called me and talked to me. So, we cannot give you an indefinite leave of absence.
Well, of course not, because they're costing them a lot of money to pay their insurance.
Well, I think by the schools it was the most I could do was 6 months. And I did that 2 years ago, remember?
How long was it?
About 2 years. So, they saw this whole thing going, and I worked for 6 months, and I get sick for 6 months, whatever. And it's been hard up there, so they keep fixing me for actually, I might just go talk to Maya and just let him listen and see what he thinks. Yeah. But then they'll end up having to settle out of court with me, and I'll say, just let me have my benefits till I die. And they'll charge me. See, I can keep the benefits if I pay $280 a month.
$280?
Yeah, that's a lot of money for me. Now I'm going to be getting Social Security.
I got benefits.
I have Medicaid and Social Security. I can probably cover it.
You know what my benefits are?
What?
Policy costs me $30 a month. It's $5,000 deductible. Doesn't pay fucking shit. But it's just for catastrophic, you know, like it's like, I don't know.
Well, I need it to buy my medicine.
You don't know.
And I go to the doctors all the time. I go to shrinks, I go to chiropractors, I go to neurologists, I go to allergies doctors, I go to dentists, I go to so many fucking doctors, you know, they can't even keep up. No. And that's even only paying 20%.
Yeah, I've been to dentist for Illinois.
You should go before it started hurting. So anyways, so they said, well, like, it took them a while to come up with a plan, but I see how they did it. And they said, you can't give it to you. But no, my Social Security will probably be almost enough to cover it.
Can you get Medicare?
Yeah, I can get all that too.
You're dirty, you get unemployment.
Not sure, huh?
God. Bad news.
But don't you think that I kind of got a pretty good handle on it?
Yeah.
I mean, look at it. Look at how.
Well, you've got all, you know, you've got all the other benefits, so you're okay.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of shitty the way they did it, though. Yeah. Here's what I think happened. They saw, they went through all their files. Now, they're not supposed to be able to look into the insurance companies. That's private.
They can't. That's true.
No,
I should.
Yeah, I'm listening. But somehow or another, they figured it out.
Well, probably because you're...
And I basically was costing them more money than I was making. And that's understandable, but those people have got money. They got the highest tuition levels in all of the universities in America.
What did you just read before?
Huh?
$50%
Yeah. It's a group policy. They have a lot of people on the payroll, but they also get a tuition that's about the highest here. One of the highest in the nation.
Oh, yeah.
So they can afford it a little bit. I don't. That's why I think it's just better that I leave quietly. But then again, why not push it and have them settle out of court with me? But I don't think it's going to work.
Really? It's good. You don't think it looks bad?
No. But I don't want to take it too far, you know why?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to be down there visiting once in a while. I'm going to get about that earth and drive me and whatever it's going.
So fuck it. Don't fucking push it.
Don't burn your bridges. Not only that, but I might be able to get them to hire me as doing something else outside of the kitchen once in a while. You know what I mean?
Okay, that was KMFD. Oh no, it was, but not anymore. That was KMFDM, and that was Bargeld. This is on the Money CD. I think it was released here, brand new actually. It's typical Skinny Puppy, but the same kind of industrial almost. I don't know what's the attitude behind industrial music. If you ever stop to look and think what it is about all that noise, and the people that are listening to it, you think they're the ones that really need to hear it, considering all the noise that the conservatives dish out to us, and then we go and torture ourselves, or maybe it's more that we want to be able to take that energy and use it in a positive way, but we don't want to drive people crazy, right? Or do we? Think about that one. Anyways, I'm getting out there today because I don't have any politics, alright? So coming up next is actually, I'm sorry. I really blew it on that one. That actually was Skinny Puppy, wasn't it? No, that was KMFDM. Skinny Puppy is coming up right now, and let's see, I think it's here on number 2, and this is also brand new, and this song is called Mirror Saw. You know, it's really crazy. These guys are playing tricks on it. This thing says like 40 seconds when it stops, and slowly tries to sneak another one in on ya. But sorry, pal, you had your dose of that. Okay, this is Methods of Madness, and what do I have another announcement for you right now? Let's see. Well, I think I can wait one more song. All this has been really new stuff, and also we'd like to thank you once again for supporting us during our fundraiser, and I don't know, tell you the truth, I haven't got the final tally, but I'll let you know how we did on that, and I hope that you'll all take the time to write your checks and wait patiently for your t-shirts and records and whatnots. Anyways, thanks once again. We really need the help down here, obviously. And, alright, so what have I got up for you? How about some new Lou Reed? Would you like that? And this is actually a really kind of poetic song, and it's called the... Oh, Lord, I couldn't possibly do that to you. It is called The Magic and the Loss, and it's very introspective. Check it out.
When you pass through the fire, you pass through humble, you pass through a maze of self-doubt. When you pass through humble, the lights can blind you. Some people never figured that out. You pass through arrogance, you pass through hurt, you pass through an ever-present past. And it's best not to wait for luck to save you. Pass through the fire to the light. Pass through the fire to the light. Pass through the fire to the light. It's best not to wait for luck to save you. Pass through the fire to the light. right hand waving, there are things you have to throw out. That caustic dread inside your head will never help you out. You have to be very strong, 'cause you'll start from zero over and over again. And as the smoke clears, there's an all-consuming fire lying straight ahead. Lying straight ahead. Lying straight ahead. As the smoke clears, there's an all-consuming fire lying straight ahead. They say no one person can do it all, but you want to in your head. But you can't be Shakespeare and you can't be Joyce, so what is left instead? You're stuck with yourself and a rage that can hurt you. You have to start at the beginning again. And just this moment, this wonderful fire started up again. When you pass through humble, when you pass through sickly, when you pass through I'm better than you all. When you pass through anger and self-deprecation and have the strength to acknowledge it all. When the past makes you laugh and you can savor the magic that lets you survive your own war. You find that that fire is passion and there's a door up ahead, not a wall. As you pass through fire, as you pass through fire, try to remember its name. When you pass through fire, looking at your lips, you cannot remain the same. And if the building's burning, move towards that door, but don't put the flames out. There's a bit of magic in everything, and then some loss to even things out. Some loss to even things out. Some loss to even things out. There's a bit of magic in everything, and then some loss to even things out.
Okay, that was some Cabaret Voltaire from the 2x45 CD, and that song was called, let's see, that was the first one, Breathe Deep. Okay, Breathe Deep. Anyways, this whole album is really one of the best Cabaret Voltaires I've ever listened to, although they have so many. It's hard to make up your mind about that. But anyways, tell you the truth, I've been thinking about playing a little more of this kind of industrial stuff, but I also want to play a little bit of kind of mellow stuff and try and spare you all my madness. But first, I'm going to give you a little taste of what you would have to listen to if you didn't support KSU.
That's excellent. We knew you'd agree. The companies will be very pleased.
Yes, they will, and you know they already are. Oh well, that was quite a little drama, puppet show, Desert Storm. I mean, they made it into like a Hollywood production. Tonight, Desert Storm. And now they're saying all those Patriot missiles were a bunch of duds. I don't know what's going on here. Duds and scuds and Iranians and Iraqis are our friends, and then they're not. And then the Saudi Arabians, oh, we're going to defend freedom and democracy where women have no rights whatsoever. Kuwait, well, we're going to help Kuwait. Oh, yes, sure. Keep those kingdoms rolling along. Of course, Kuwait was, I've heard from the underground, was stealing oil from Iraq with these diagonally shaped wells, and that was the reason for all of that. And we suckered them all into our war machine. And right here across the railroad tracks from Santa Clara University, you'll find places like FMC, who are building tanks, Bradley vehicles, who've been under a lot of scrutiny for not being what they say they were, and that all seems to be coming out to be true. And just pretty much all of Silicon Valley has been centered around our big war machine. It seems to be the only thing that we're good for anymore. And I hate to say that, but that's the way it is. Anyways, this is the Methods of Madness, KSCU. CIT Incorporated congratulates students for completing a year of hard work and also urges graduates and prom goers once again not to drink and drive. Most of the deaths of people between 14 and 25 are from alcohol-related accidents. So remember, this is a reminder brought to you by the concerned staff at CTT Incorporated in Santa Clara. CTT Incorporated is on the air because they care about the future of their workers and the Bay Area. And that's the second alcohol one, but I imagine by now you guys have already done all your drinking, and you're trying to sober up for the rest of the week and get some work done, I hope. And this is a good time to get a lot of work done. Spring is always good for that. It's about exactly 5:30 here, down here, the Underground Sound, 103.3. I think I had another announcement, but I can't quite find it, so I'll be back with that in just a minute. But in the meantime, I'd like you to think about all the things I'm saying and remember to go out and vote. And if you are going to do those things, well then, maybe you should be listening to this song right here.
Carriages, man, we have that guy drive. Oh, by the circle. I thought something was burning. It was, right? The morning of the show.
David Byrne there with Fall Through the Cracks. It's about 6:15 here at KSU in Santa Clara. And it's just about time that we talk a little politics. Probably some of you heard that the Supreme Court narrowly upheld Roe versus Wade by a vote of 5-4 with a couple of swinging voters in there. I think there was, Sandra O'Connor was in the middle, but Kennedy and Souter, who basically were appointed by either Reagan or Bush, I can't remember which, they were against the whole abortion rights, and I guess at the last minute, O'Connor got on her knees and convinced him to preserve a woman's right, which I think is a really good step in the right direction, because as soon as they start taking our rights away, we might as well be living in Nazi Germany. But I have here a piece of paper from about 9 months ago, and last summer sometime when the Supreme Court was really going on a rampage of rulings. And this is real brief. I'm going to hear a little Sylvian in the background, I think. And in case some of you don't remember, we've already lost a lot of our rights. And let's see, the Miranda rights will no longer have to be read. So when if you're pulled over and they're arresting you, they don't have to tell you that you can keep your mouth shut. They're gonna ask you one question after another, and they don't have to tell you, even though you still do have that right. And here's another one that really spooks me, is that coerced confessions can be used against you in the court of law. Police can search you without a warrant in your car, trunk, or house without a warrant. And you can be held for up to 48 hours for no reason at all. It used to be only 24 hours. Also among the rulings, government-sponsored family planning are under gag order. They are not allowed to discuss abortion with pregnant women, which is still in effect. And also the federal appeals of prison inmates who are on death row are severely restricted, to the point where they almost don't even have the right to an appeal anymore. I would say thereby creating speedy executions without the chance of another trial. And there's so much going on in this world right now, as we all know. And it's spooky at times, There seems to be this big arm that's coming down on everybody. And you look around, all these middle-class people are having garage sales, and meanwhile the corporate-controlled media tells you that the recession is getting better. But if you look around the facts and the figures, things have only been getting worse and worse and worse ever since the Republicans took office 12 years ago. And Bush, who turned his back on the world over the environmental conference in Rio de Janeiro, has really made us look like a bunch of, well, I don't know what the word is, but frankly it rather bothers me that so many countries are concerned about the ozone depletion, and we want to preserve our right to pollute. And Dan Quayle is in his special counsel for competitiveness is too busy talking about Murphy Brown. He can't spell potato, and they're turning this whole election into like a National Enquirer or something. Nobody is ever dealing with the real issues. This is something that Nixon actually started up in the 60s, was to take the attention away from the real issue and start blaming the media. A lot of the media has been, pushed into the corner. But then again, a lot of the media is controlled, and everything is whitewashed. And they only tell you what you want to hear. They told you how good the Patriot missile was, but now it turns out that it was a dud. And then there was when we buried all those Iraqis who were retreating, we buried them alive. And then there was this whole CIA, Iran-Contra, Noriega, arms for money, cocaine, and this and that seemed to put Noriega away forever. But we all know that there was something going on, and the Contra thing was all illegal, and Congress got a little mad about that. But of course, about half of them got off the hook, and everybody said they didn't know, all the ones in the higher echelons of the government. But now some of them are speaking up and saying that they knew all along. Now, I don't know if these are the people that you want to continue to run our poor country, which is just falling apart at the seams, but I certainly don't. And lastly, I'd just like to leave you with one bit of advice, and that is to vote. That's all you can do, basically, and don't let them get the best of you. This is the Methods of Madness.